Got a question here from Mike on Raw. Mike on Raw, I've known him via YouTube since forever. He talks to me via Patreon once in a while. And he just was talking to me now via YouNow, which miraculously is working tonight in China. Live streaming application. Mike asks a very simple question. He asks, if we say there is a long game and a short game to be played, are vegans playing either game well today? I think you have to separate this into a couple of categories. I mean, I think the real game that you're asking about, Mike, is probably the culture game. There's a term that's now only used in a disparaging and negative way. New sweater, by the way, guys. Just bought this today. I'm trying to look 65. Is it working? Anyway, I think what you're really asking about is what people in politics used to call the culture wars. It's a shame the term the culture wars is now used only negatively, and people tend to use it in reference to, for example, cultural struggles within the United States about the status of abortion, about the status of homosexuals, that this is a culture war that conservatives were trying to win, not through democratic means, but through churches, through, for example, the contrast between the culture that you see on a left-wing university campus in the United States and a right-wing university campus in the United States. I come from Canada. I don't think we have any right-wing universities in Canada. Every campus I've been on in Canada is so left-wing, it's almost communist. There are a lot of communists on Canadian university campuses. But anyway, I probably, I think Prince Edward Island. I think in Canada we have one right-wing university that I know of. But anyway, in the U.S., there are both. So the term culture wars is often used in that way, disparagingly or lamentingly, about those struggles over those kinds of changes. But yeah, I mean, you talk about a long game and a short game. I don't think we could possibly be talking about fundraising for a particular institution, throwing a particular picnic, having a particular, concert or event like that. Which there's plenty of going on planet Earth under the heading of veganism, which is, hopeful in some ways. I think the question is, how are we trying to influence culture, short-term and long-term? When you go to Google Ngram, which is this internet-based application that measures how many times a word is used, the word vegan, the use has gone up exponentially. But that's because Google Ngram is, above all, influenced by words in print, traditional, old-fashioned, on-paper book publishing. And the word vegan is used all the time because it's used in cookbooks. So the currency of the word itself, as measured by Google Ngram and what have you, cookbooks themselves are huge. But do cookbooks influence cultural change? I'd say no. I mean, if someone buys a cookbook as a gift to give to someone else who isn't already vegan, that's a form of influence. But I remember when I was in Germany, and there's in effect no vegan food, no vegan restaurants in the city I was in Germany, which is, I'm not even complaining. It's just the reality. I remember the one time I would see the word vegan leap out at me when I was walking past the bookstores. One in particular, in the front display window, they had a couple of vegan recipe books, vegan that leap out at you. And you kind of, even if you've seen it before, you can't help noticing the word vegan out of the corner of your eye. But, this is like the old distinction between hot media and cold media. The fact that that book is sitting on a shelf doesn't mean that it's influencing cultural change. It's like a lagging indicator. People who already become vegan are buying vegan cookbooks, or maybe some people who aren't vegan who are trying to lose weight. But the same indication, before September 11th, 2001, all the books about Islam as a religion were on the shelves at the bookstores, and they were on the shelves of the libraries, of course. But I can remember, because I was part of my own education, I studied political science, I studied politics in the Muslim world. Before September 11th, nobody was reading those books, apparently not even in the courses that require you to read them. And it used to be that a lot of the watchwords, like the difference between the Hadith and the Quran, the different concepts that are fundamental to Muslim jurisprudence, Muslim legal system, nobody knew those terms. If you said them in English in a political conversation, people would just look at you like, what the hell are you talking about? This is in a formal academic setting. After September 11th, everything changed. So, the books were there, but they weren't changing the world. The world changed, and then people started reaching out for and making use of those books. It may seem like an exceedingly bizarre comparison to make, but I do think it's a salient one. In the same way, when people become vegan, they start making use of those books, and otherwise the books sit there, as meaningless and inert as a tombstone, as easily ignored as a monument. And you can walk past the same monument on the street every day, and it means nothing to you. And the other elements of cultural change, the other elements of the movement, give them life, or what have you. I don't know, man. I mean, so, vegans trying to achieve cultural change. The people who are winning, in the long game, are the people, honestly, this is the only positive thing to say, are the people who are opening restaurants. Restaurants are probably the most underrated institution in veganism. I've talked to the vegans also about opening like a food truck, a mobile restaurant. I do think that both in terms of the short game and the long game, I think that restaurants as such, inherently political restaurants, vegan restaurants, can be a very powerful card to be played. I think for the short game and the long game, that is very positive. I would really have to rack my brains to think of even one other positive example under any heading whatsoever to mention here. And you guys have heard me say, if you've been watching this channel for a while, I used to talk a lot about street protests, the different methods of activism. I haven't lately just because I don't like to repeat myself. But, when I see people, down to and including like vegan gains, running up to strangers and yelling at them on the street because they're wearing fur coats, I understand why they're doing that. I may sympathize with the motives or what have you. But both in terms of the short game and the long game, obviously, no, I do not think that's playing the game well. And it's not just about the people who get yelled at, the people wearing the fur coats. I think the people who engage in those forms of activism themselves, even though it may be cathartic in the short term, long term they burn out. Hopefully they move on to other more productive forms of activism. But a lot of them just burn out on activism, period, if that's their mode of activism. So that's it, man. I mean, restaurants, they are institutions, and that is really currently the only positive institution building aspect of what's going on in veganism that I know of, that I can think of. There's no such thing as a vegan theater. There's no such thing as a vegan sitcom. There could be on YouTube. We could put together a vegan sitcom. We still do not have anything like a vegan news program comparable to, the Young Turks. Sorry, Klaus. There's a guy named Klaus who tries to do that. It's not what I'm talking about. We have nothing going on in terms of publications like newspapers or magazines. Sorry, I don't want to go on and on here. Aside from the restaurants, which are obviously crucial. I don't even know about, good example, I don't even know about vegan gyms. I have talked to some other vegans about the idea of opening a vegan gym, a place to work out, but all the stuff is vegan, and including the foods. So someone here in the chat is just joking, at least there's vegan drama. So those people have already burnt out also, right? We just had vegan Cheetah say he's going to quit, etc., etc. Yeah. Hopefully that wasn't too abstract for you, Mike.